UN 영어뉴스. Mâchon, the French breakfast you don't know. While France is renowned for its pains au chocolat and croissants, Lyon has a long-standing tradition of talking into wine and offal at breakfast. Among the high-rise apartment blocks of Baise, one of Lyon's newer quartiers district, I stepped into a little restaurant where time seemed to have stood still for 100 years. From the outside, Les Forges, a Lyonnaise Mâchon traditional restaurant, looked much like the nondescript cafe-cum-tobacco shops that can be found in most small French towns. But inside the decor was as warm and inviting as a country pub. The red gingham tablecloths matched the checkered napkins, which were neatly stored in shelving units along the wall, with brass plaques indicating each owner's name. Regular clientele who had their own napkin stored for them. As I sat down, sandwiched between jolly retirees Pierre-Loïc Delphante and Jean-Paul Pilon, I realized that I was the youngest in the group by more than 30 years. The cheese delivery had just arrived, and the chef was unpacking brown paper bags containing soft balls of cervelle de canut, an unappetizing name that translates as silk worker's bread, but looks like cottage cheese. Delphante filled my glass with a crisp white wine from Beaujolais. It was 900 in the morning. I've always found French petit déjeuner breakfast insubstantial, but that wasn't the first thing that came to mind as I scanned the menu on the blackboard. Gone were the tartines and croissants, replaced instead by a list that read like a biology textbook. Rognons de veau, calf's kidney, tablier de zapeur, fried breaded tripe, tête de veau, calf's head. This was Mâchon, a long-standing Lyonnaise breakfast tradition, where no part of the animal goes to waste. As dish after dish arrived, I tried to convince myself that the fried tripe slices could be mushrooms, but the boiled calf's head, encased in grey gelatin, didn't resemble anything I'd eaten before. Oddly, the calf's head tasted pretty good, a little like warm, soft pork scratchings, though I struggled to look at it. Pig is a vegetable which goes with everything, said Pilon, his eyes twinkling as he offered me a slice of pâté in croûte. We moved onto red wine from Beaujolais and after a couple of sips, my glass was promptly topped up again. It was like an antiquated version of a Prosecco and avocado toast millennial bottomless brunch. Lyon's curious tradition of talking into wine and offal at breakfast started several centuries ago. Between the mid-16th and 19th centuries, the city's silk industry was among the most important in Europe. The Canus silk workers would often work for up to 12 hours a day to meet demand as silks became increasingly popular with French nobility. Travois covered passageways that labyrinths across Lyon and characterized the city's architecture were used for transporting the precious material between buildings. Although the oldest of Lyon's 400-odd travois are thought to date from as early as the 1st century CE, many were built in Croix Rose, the city's silk weaving quartier, during the silk industry boom, and with Canus often starting work in the small hours of the morning. By 0900, they needed more sustenance than a pain au chocolat or croissant. Working with what was on their doorstep, Lyonnais restaurants served up cuts of meat, mostly cow or pig, that were farmed in the hills just outside the city. With the wine-growing region of Beaujolais just 32 kilometers north of Lyon, the offal was typically washed down with copious amounts of wine. Mâchon, which means true, was also a moment for silk weavers, merchants, and businessmen to come together to break bread and discuss business affairs, sign contracts, and make deals. This mixing of classes was seen as a societal level, although perhaps this is apocryphal, since many believe that the silk workers' brains, cheese, typically served as a dessert, was named as a dig at the supposed lack of intelligence of the Canus. Either way, many businesses in Lyon still choose to conduct meetings over Mâchon today. My breakfast that morning was with members of the Francs Mâchons, a local society founded in 1964 that comes together 6 times a year to feast on innards for breakfast. Club president and Mâchon Bayard Delphante told me that he had enjoyed no less than 9 Mâchons in the last 10 days. He was sporting a large napkin fastened around his neck with a chain and a matching apron, both designed especially for the Francs Mâchons. Embroidered on each was a clock face set to 900, the time when Mâchon begins, encircled by little sausages and what looked like farfalle pasta, but was in fact a delicately strewn representation of another Mâchon specialty, paquets de Cohen's boiled pig skin folded like a bow tie and fastened with string. hanging around his neck was a beaten metal wine-tasting cup. To be a Frank's Mâchon, you must be male, over 30, and be recommended by 2 existing members. The group never numbers more than 40, so aspiring Frank's Mâchons must wait for a member to leave or die. Del Ponte told me he was a member for almost 30 years before being elected their president. A woman's equivalent, a club called the Mâchon des Filles, was set up by Lyonnais locals 17 years ago. They are much less regimented, and their members, who range in age from 18 to 80, include Americans, British, and Swiss women, as well as locals. I've known about the Mâchon tradition my whole life, said their president and one of the founding members, Valérie Giraud. My father was a plasterer and painter, and in the 1960s, he regularly started his workday at 0500 or 0600 and break a few hours later for Mâchon. Most of the Frank's Mâchons weren't happy when we set up a women's society, Giraud added. They felt that women were meant to be serving the food, not eating. There are a few sticklers for tradition that still feel that way, but most of them are now delighted that there is a women's equivalent. The girls can easily sink 2 bottles of Beaujolais per person, Williams Jack Choir later told me, admiringly. We met at his upmarket restaurant, Le Vivarice, on Lyon's Presqu'île, which he runs with his daughter Audrey. Their Saturday morning Mâchon is particularly popular. Williams and Audrey opened their restaurant 13 years ago. Audrey was barely 19 at the time, and she has reinvented many of the traditional Mâchon dishes, choosing to include more vegetables and use less fat than most traditional Mâchons. Her pâté in croûte, containing 9 different types of meat, delicately molded in a baking tin longer than my arm, earned her a first place in the 2013 World Pâté in Croûte Championships. For the second time in a week, I found myself with a glass of Beaujolais in my hand at 0900, as father and daughter chimed in over each other, listing the different meats included: sweet bread, foie gras, pork throat. None of it had traveled further than 60 kilometers. The slice that I was offered was mosaic-like in various shades of pink, the pastry as flaky as a croissant. The family's stag does business meetings, Williams said, listing their clientele, all ages, students bringing their partners on dates. As it was in the past, Mâchon is a great level. It's undergoing a renewed popularity. People are keen to reconnect with the past and revive old traditions. Mâchon is an excuse for people to sit back, relax, and share moments over a good meal, added Audrey. It's as simple as that. Williams and Audrey don't believe that Mâchon is at risk of disappearing, even with more people choosing to adopt a plant-based diet. We've adapted to the times, said Williams. People don't eat as much rich, fatty food as they did at the turn of the 20th century. So we'll add a little less cream here, a little less butter there. They try to keep the farm to fork circuit as short as possible too, using vegetables, meat and wine from the Lyon area. Back at Les Forges with the Francs Mâchons, I pushed the remains of the now cold tripe around my plate. I felt I'd made a brilliant attempt, and I moved onto my cervelle de canot, served in an ice cream bowl, and mixed with vinegar and spring onions with gusto, compared with the dishes licked clean by my companions, though my effort was paltry. Delphante and Pillow adjourned to the adjacent table. As is tradition, it was time to conduct business, although business this morning concerned the happy task of mapping out in which order they will visit the various portions participating in the following week's Mâchon Week, an increasingly popular annual event where Lyon restaurants compete to put on the best spread. Restaurants that wouldn't typically serve Mâchon join in too, and after 5 days of Mâchons, wine tastings, and cheese samplings, the Francs Mâchons award certificates to the establishments that cook up the best Mâchon. It was more than 3 hours later when I finally emerged from the scarlet time warp back into the mess of 24th century apartment blocks. I paddled past a burger joint and multi-story office buildings, the air thick with exhaust fumes. People dashed in and out of buildings, with sandwiches in their hands, glancing anxiously at their watches. I moved slowly, with a full belly, and my head pleasantly fuzzy with wine. We often trivialize mealtimes these days and eat badly, said Giraud. Mâchon makes us take a proper pause. We've spent all day over Mâchon before. More than that, though, we are bringing custom to traditional restaurants, and we are stopping typical dishes from disappearing from view. From the warm welcome I had received from the man at Les Forges and Giraud's insistence that I join the next women's Mâchon, it seems that this French breakfast tradition is just as great a leveler as it ever was. Culinary Roots is a series from BBC Travel connecting to the rare and local foods woven into a place's heritage.